So you've just spent $10,000 on your CPU and you're looking for which motherboard to buy. This is the one. And let's be honest, most people are gonna click off this video. And I don't blame you. Everything in this video is very expensive. But we're gonna talk about this anyway. So let's take a look exactly what this motherboard offers for peasants like us. It's so annoying. I don't want to pay hundreds of dollars to just change my Windows wallpaper just because my Windows isn't licensed. Well, why don't you try Hookies? That's a ton cheaper. And if you use the code TN20, you get it even cheaper. What do you mean? How do I get it and how is it possible? Well, see this video here, or the one you're watching? Click in the link on the video description, add the Windows 11 CD product to the cart, proceed to checkout, add the code TN20 for the extra discount. So what, the Windows 11 Pro OEM key is just $23.22? Yeah. Choose the preferred payment option and complete the purchase. The key will be available on the purchased orders in a few moments. Copy the key and paste it into your Windows activation settings, and you're all done. Oh, that was easy. Is that Ryan Gosling? No. Anyway, by the way, the same discount code also works website-wide, so go check out other products, maybe like Microsoft Office. If you don't know why I have this motherboard or this CPU, then just go check out the comment section below. People will explain it down there. You think that was expensive? Do you know what these are? This is 8-channel RAM. Each one of them 128 gigabytes. This RAM is more expensive than that CPU. But we're talking about the motherboard. Okay, we're greeted with power supply cable. Believe it or not, I'm actually gonna use this on a build. So it's a Y cable. One goes for the motherboard, two comes up for your power supplies. Then we've got other interesting cables. So there's CPU 8-pin to PCIe 8-pin power cables. So I guess this is for the other motherboard as well. Pulls CPU power, but this time we're putting this to our motherboard headers. Your secondary power supply, you put the CPU headers onto there, and then the PCIe headers go onto the motherboard, which we'll see in a minute. Oh baby. Okay, let's put this on the side. We have a massive plastic bag for this one sticker. ASUS Control Center, safety information. Okay, what else do we get? We get two display ports to mini display port cables. You'll see that why we need that on the motherboard. If you want to get video output over the USB-C on the motherboard, you'll need those. So there's two of these. We get a tiny screw here. M.2 quick release front panel kind of extension. So if you've got a case that has lots of tiny little cables, you can plug them into there and then plug that onto the motherboard. We've got 4 SATA cables, a fan header. So this is probably like 40mm fan header, something like that. We've got M.2 sticker. If you've got a one-sided M.2 sticker, that's what you need this for. Another one of those, another one of those, 3 of those. Another one of the fan headers for your RAM, most likely. And then we've got this rubbery button cap, something for that. And then one temperature pin. Oh, baby. Okay, it's massive, it's humongous. On the back, you can see most of the back is also covered with this back plate on the back of the CPU and everything. There's still like thousands of SMDs and other things that you could shave off on the bottom and the back here, capacitors, caps, whatever. So be very, very careful. I wish this was kind of went over everything, but there must have been a reason why they didn't do that. Why is this only covered in here? Because if you remember the Gigabyte TRX50 AI tops, that has cover like for the whole lot. In here, we don't. To make yourself feel better for the purchase price of this, you get 3 months for free Adobe Creative Cloud membership. So enjoy. One of the things that I recognize for the design, there's lots of included fans for this motherboard. There is one fan actually down there, sideways, and that kind of blows onto this USB 4 heatsink, something like that, that's happening there. And then the fan header is just underneath there because the USB 4 controllers or sockets in there, they require some cooling. Now, this bit here is plastic on the top. This is metal. The rest of the things are metal and everything's kind of a heatsink. Then we've got 2 fans on here for our power delivery. So you've got your MOSFETs and VRMs underneath there. Interestingly, there's a massive hole on this side for obviously airflow reasons. So if you've got fans in the front of the case, they would blow into there and then kind of through it. So they've made this kind of blow through. To me, this is not an ideal thing. And I think a little bit of a kind of mistake in terms of design, because look, you're thinking that the fans are gonna blow into here, right? But the thing is, you've got your power supply cables right in the way here. So there's hardly anything that goes in there. So let's take this top off, like kind of the fins go all the way to the top. So we get a little bit more kind of going through here, because this, it doesn't seem to be kind of working for me as much. No matter how much you're gonna bend this down, you're not gonna bend them down so it won't come over here. I don't know if they've thought about that, kind of interesting. And then we've got a fourth fan, and this is here, this is for the chipset. So interestingly, this is kind of a blow down fan, and I believe it blows down like through there, all the way there, and then from the top and from the side. So it takes the air from there and then kind of blows it on each direction, because there's like grooves that go underneath this here and underneath this that way and that way. There is a chipset somewhere down here that this probably cools down as well. We'll take a look at that in a minute. Look at this, 7 PCIe slots. Before we go on to the top, you see one of these things, which is that before you even can kind of plug your RAM in, they're giving you this thing to actually show you how to install dual power supplies, because they recognize that most likely if you're a high-end person, you know, you bought this, you're probably not going to run just 5070 in there on an ARC GPU. You're going to absolutely populate with lots of GPUs, which means that most likely you're going to need 2 power supplies to actually power all your RTX 6000 Pro GPUs that pull, you know, 600 watts. So then, from the top, there's power connectors in here, obviously CPU and then CPU. And there's extra CPU headers, I think, or PCIe headers. So basically, I think these are now for these cables, if I'm not mistaken. And you're gonna put them into there. These are right now, they're capped off, if that makes sense. So if you've got the secondary power supply, you plug it into there. So on the top there, we've got a water pump header. This is running 100% at all times, and all of the fan headers are 3 amperes, 12 volts. Usual motherboards are 2 amperes, and you only get 24 watts per header. This one, 36 every single header, which is ridiculous. Then we've got Dr. Debug, obviously, workstation. Without this one, no one's gonna buy this motherboard, because, you know, if there's an error somewhere, you wanna see a code that you can go and look through the manual and find where your error is. Then we've got obviously the power button, reset button, your BIOS battery. Don't let your children play with them. Easy to swallow, very dangerous. And then underneath the reset button is a flex key. So that flex key will reset your system, but you can also customize it in the BIOS to make it do different things, if that makes sense. Then there's lots of tiny little headers happening over there. There's 2 prongs in here. There is no actual explanation, and on the motherboard manual, it doesn't actually show that there is a header. I think this is a temperature sensor, temperature header, like the same one we have on the bottom in here. As you can see, there's one here. I think they've put another one on the top there, but just didn't have kind of space to write down or write it anywhere how much or what this actually is or what it does. Also, another thing I just realized is this motherboard PCB is so thick, multiple layers there. Then we've got CPU fan and CPU optional fan headers. This is different. Both of these share the same fan curve in the BIOS, or in the IPMI actually. Then we've got IPMI switch down there. Then this header here communicates with your power supply. So if you want to get some kind of information from the power supply, a PSU SMB, that's what it's called. You connect your power supply in there. I don't think every power supply has that header, so just bear that in mind. A power supply switch, which I'm exactly not sure what that does, but apparently this allows you to select PSU PM bus version. I'm sure someone in the comments can explain what that means. We've got another chassis fan, 2 PCIe ATX power headers. Then we've got a front panel USB Type-C header, and this is 20 gigabits in speed. Now, you might think that we can scroll past so fast, but no. Can you see these holes right in there? This tiny row of different holes. These are like voltage header controllers. So if you want to monitor some serious voltage, V-core, VDV, SoC, some CPU, you know, actual voltages and overclocking, things like that, this is what that is for. You connect one of your headers to this underneath that, you know, socket on the actual chassis and screw it into there. So that motherboard screw kind of in there. And then the other one you use that one, and then you can monitor all sorts of voltages. We've got 4 SATA ports on the side, 2 slim SAS connectors. Bear in mind, both of these are PCIe Gen 4 X4 slots. Front panel USB Type A, 5 gigabits in speed, temperature sensor, 2 more switches. One of them here is RSVD. So this switch here is only for ASUS professional technicians. I think when you send your motherboard in or whatever, then they switch something in there. I don't know what this is for, but in order for you to actually use this motherboard, you make sure that this is off. That's what the manual says. And then you've got the slow mode in here. So this is when you're doing overclocking. I mean, this workstation motherboard has so many overclocking features. I'm like, the pros overclock? I don't know. Then we've got this chassis header. What the heck is this? This is very interesting. So this header here, you can connect to your chassis and want to make sure that if there is intrusion. So let's say you connect a header on your chassis. Let's say you've got a server and it can be opened. It can send a signal or alarm or make noise or something like that if, you know, sometime is tinkling with your gear and you don't want them to. Front panel headers, we've got a COM port in there, 2 more chassis headers, 2 more USB Type A headers, retry button. So you're doing overclocking, you want to retry, you know, go again, boom, that button. M.2 for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. This motherboard actually doesn't come with any Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. If you want that, hey, you cheapskate, just buy some extra, okay? I'm not gonna give it to you. You've already spent so much, but because I know you've got some money, I'm not going to give you the M.2. So no Wi-Fi, Bluetooth for you. You're probably in the server room anyway. Get your keyboard and mouse wired in, plug it in the back. You want it wireless? You got to pay extra. We've got an LN2 mode. So there's a little jumper cable with 3 pins. If you're using liquid nitrogen, that header is for you. You move it around. Okay, I want more LN2 just so the motherboard knows, and overclocking more voltages, blah, 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 blah. Like, why would you use this for this? You want to overclock the 10 grand CPU? You're mental. BMC switch. Basically, this motherboard has a tiny little computer that controls every single header and everything that's happening on this motherboard. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, even if you want to do some fan headers and things like that, you can't do that in BIOS. You're going to have to connect to the management port and actually control this whole thing as a server. Basically, here you can switch it on and off if you wanted to. Then you've got VGA switch. So there is actually onboard graphics, a tiny little graphics that if you want to plug into there, you can kind of manage this board locally because there's a computer that runs this computer, if that makes sense. So you can switch that on and off. Then there's IP fix because the default IP, if you want to connect to this board and connect, you know, do some adjustments and see some temperatures and fan curves and things like that. The IP is fixed. If you don't want it to fix, oh, it should be actually fixed. I think the fix should be on. I think you can change that in BIOS, just so you know. We've got an micro SD card slot, that one in there, pop something in there, and then you can log some of this board management data onto the SD card if you wanted to save this, or making sure that everything's working perfectly. One more chassis fan. Then you've got a VPP I2C header in there. This is used for storage backplate with sensor readings. I think this is, let's say if you've got a massive other rack of hard drives or something like that installed on a different, you know, let's say layer of the server, then you can monitor some of these things via that header. Correct me if I'm wrong. Location and LED headers here. So in the front of your LAN, for example, let's say you've got a whole warehouse full of these and you get an error that one of these fans or one of the GPUs has stopped working. And then in your management control system, you can say locate, make sure that your front chassis, you can put a little light in there. Location, you can put these in here. So you can trigger the location and see, okay, I can see that server in there is actually, you know, broken. So I know adjust that one, because otherwise, how do you know which one you're actually adjusting? Then this one there is BMC temperature sensor. So inside your board management control, there's also some temperature headers. Then if you want to control something, you know, remotely and measure the temperature inside, you need that header just right over there. Front panel audio, and there's another 3 headers right there. I have no idea what these are. No one knows. Secret headers, not for you, not for me. By the way, there is also a debug, LPC debug header in there. Some more chassis fans and a TPM header right in there. I think TPM 2.0 and more is already built into your CPU, but if you need extra, you've got the TPM header in there, or in the future, if you know they need TPM 3.0 or more, it's in there. So obviously we've got the socket where you're going to put your Ryzen Threadripper Pro CPUs, and I don't think you can put a non-Pro CPU in there. Only the Pro version, okay? Don't cheap out on here, and best to go with a 96 core. No, you can go smaller ones as well, because sometimes you don't need that much CPU power, but you still need all the PCIe lanes for all the connectivity and blah, blah, blah. Then, for example, AI PC, you might not need that many CPU cores, but you need extra super large amount of GPUs, then you can do that there. Now, there's 8 slots of RAM, and if you knew that already, the Threadripper Pros come with 8-channel memory. The Threadrippers come with 4 Threadripper Pro 8 channels. If you want to run 4, 6, or 8, there are certain DIMM slots that you need to occupy, not just anything goes in here. And they also have a suggested VGA support. So depending if you're running 3 or 4 GPUs, there's certain ones. They recommend for 3, then you run the first one, 4th one, and then the bottom one. And if you've got 4, then that one, that one, that one, and that one, if that makes sense. I'm gonna do a build, and let's see if I can get 4. All of these PCIe expansion slots are PCIe Gen 5 X16, so you get the full flipping bandwidth of ridiculousness in there. Even though, I mean, if you wanna plug in 5090s, RTX 6000 Pros, 7 of them in here, you can, but you probably have to use some PCIe riser cables to move them somewhere else, because they literally can't just fit next to each other in here. Or if you want to have super fast storage, these slots do support by verification the 16 lanes. All of them except the slot 6, which is this one here, supports 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4, like the usual one. So then you get 16 lanes. And then the 6th one, 4 plus 4. And I just realized I did make a mistake. Not all of them are X16. The number 6 is X8. Okay, so you don't get all the 16 lanes on that one there, which actually is perfect, because I've bought a card that would perfectly fit into there. So I'm not going to waste any of the 16 lanes. And also this is a clever kind of setup. So if you've got your RTX 5090, for example, or multiple of them, and you plug it into any of the slots, well, all you have to do is actually just take all of the chassis side of the GPU and then just pull up, and then you can actually remove your GPU. So there's no easy latching or anything else. It just comes up. It's very clever like that. I want to know what's underneath these heat sinks. And obviously before you install everything, make sure that you do remove these plastics. Don't know if I even have to do these heat sinks. I think doing the bigger screws is better. Okay, whenever you remove the heatsink, bear in mind that this fan header is actually plugged into it. Only 3 M.2 slots. All of these 3 are PCIe Gen... Oh, I'm lying to you. There's a 4th one as well. I'll take this off. These 3, PCIe Gen 5 X4, so full bandwidth. And then there's one more on the bottom there. This is the only one that has a kind of a heatsink on the bottom as well. These do have thermal pads on the bottom as well, but there is no heatsink down there. It's just gonna go kind of underneath, just onto the motherboard and kind of heat the motherboard up. And I think that's why they've made holes on this M.2 heatsink, so that you'd get some blow through here. But I still think it would have been better to have some kind of fan situation in here that would just blow it that way, or not exactly sure. This is just an interesting heatsink that they went for on the top there. So 4 PCIe Gen 5 M.2, all 4 lanes. Oh, I thought that's the end. Not yet. We're going to take a look at the I/O of this motherboard. So what we can see on the top is a BIOS USB Type A. You need to update the BIOS, plug it into there, BIOS flashback, and you can just update it in there without going into any of the details, which is really, really nice. We've got 2 USB-C ports that are USB 4, 40 gigabits in second. And if you want video output, you're going to have to put that display port in and out. Remember those cables inside the motherboard, out of your GPU into there, and then you get video out as well. You've got 1 management LAN port. That's where you connect this into if you want to control this motherboard. So not into the 10 gigabits, but the management port. Let's say you want to have a separate switch or whatever where you manage all of these things, then over the network, basically you can manage. Seems a little bit flimsy for this price point. Then we've got USB Type A ports. There's 6 of them, 10 gigabits in second, and the 2 LAN ports, 10 gigabits per second as well. And then the VGA port, I haven't seen that for a while, but That's for, you know, little graphics, not from the CPU, but external little chip of a graphics that just runs a monitor to show you what's going on, you know, in the board management control. We've got clear CMOS, line in and line mic in ports in there. This is a crazy motherboard, and if you want to check out the pricing, I dare you to check it out in the video description below. I mean, if you want to save yourself money and build something a little bit more affordable, I've got PC build guides in the video description below. Or if you want to reach out to Minnect, I always get back to my Minnect messages within 24 hours. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks guys for watching, and it's time to build the beast, if you know what I mean. Do you know what I mean? Let's do it before Ryzen 9000 comes out. I've got everything now. Let's do it.